Christophe, born Daniel Bevilacqua, was not just a singer, he was a dreamer who turned his pain and passion into music. In the 1960s, when French pop was exploding, Christophe's voice stood out. His hit Aline made him a household name overnight. Fans couldn't get enough of his soft yet powerful singing. He became a star, adored by millions, his face on posters, his songs on every radio. But behind that fame was a man who already felt a distance from the world. While his songs spoke of longing and love, Christophe himself seemed to live in a bubble of his own creation. Fame gave him recognition, but it also pulled him into a world where he struggled to belong. He enjoyed applause, but once the lights dimmed, he often disappeared into the shadows. The Christophe people loved on stage was not the same Christophe who lived privately. This gap between the legend and the man would shape the rest of his life. When Christophe performed, he gave everything, his energy, his soul, his vulnerability. But when the show ended, he withdrew. Unlike other stars who thrived on public appearances, Christophe preferred silence. He avoided parties, skipped many social gatherings, and rarely gave interviews. Friends described him as shy, even reclusive. He felt misunderstood, even when surrounded by thousands of adoring fans. Fame gave him comfort, but also created walls. People expected him to always shine, but Christophe was someone who lived for music, not for attention. His family often felt this distance, too. He lived more like a poet than a celebrity. This refusal to fully embrace the spotlight only deepened his reputation as a mysterious figure. To many, he seemed untouchable, but to Christophe, it was survival. Being alone was not loneliness for him, it was protection. Still, this choice carried a price, slowly pushing him into isolation. For many artists, one big hit is a blessing. For Christophe, Aline became both a crown and a chain. The song was everywhere, loved across generations, and it secured his place in music history. But Christophe sometimes felt trapped by it. He once admitted that fans would forever tie him to that single song, even though he had written many others. Every concert, every appearance, people demanded Aline. He played it, of course, but deep inside he longed for people to explore the rest of his art. He was a man of constant reinvention, experimenting with sounds, trying new ideas. Yet the world often froze him in time, locked in the summer of 1965. This frustrated him and deepened his sense of alienation. Christophe wanted to be more than his biggest hit. But fame has a strange way of deciding what part of an artist the world will remember. While others slept, Christophe came alive at night. He often worked until dawn, composing, listening to records, or simply reflecting. Night was his escape, a time when the noise of the world faded and his imagination took over. His home became his sanctuary, filled with vinyl, instruments, and stacks of books. He surrounded himself with beauty, velvet curtains, antique lamps, rare objects. Friends said visiting his apartment felt like entering another world, frozen in time. Christophe's love for the night was not only about creativity, it was also about hiding. Daylight meant questions, obligations, and exposure. The night gave him freedom to be himself without judgment. It was during these long hours that he crafted some of his most emotional songs. But this choice also set him further apart from ordinary life, making his world smaller, quieter, and more private. Though Christophe lived a glamorous life on the surface, inside he often battled feelings of emptiness. Fame brought money, recognition, and opportunities, but it also created isolation. Friends noticed he became more selective about who he allowed close. Many called him enigmatic, but that mystery came from a place of pain. He feared betrayal, misunderstanding, and judgment. Over time, this turned into self-imposed isolation. He wasn't seen in public as much, and when he was, people were surprised at how distant he seemed. Fame had given him everything but stolen his peace. It's ironic, millions adored him, yet he often felt unseen. His world narrowed into music, night hours, and solitude. This struggle wasn't unusual for artists, but Christophe carried it to an extreme. The deeper his fame grew, the more he pulled away from the crowd. Christophe's private life was filled with obsessions. He collected rare jukeboxes, vinyl records, and unusual objects. He loved old Hollywood films and classic cars. His apartment looked more like a museum than a home. Every item told a story, and Christophe surrounded himself with them as if they were friends. He confessed once that objects never betrayed him. People sometimes did. His collections became his companions, and in many ways they replaced human connection. Fans imagined him living a glamorous life, but the truth was simpler. Christophe often spent hours alone, flipping through records, staring at his treasures, lost in thought. For him, these objects carried the warmth and permanence that relationships could not. They became part of his secret world, a world most people never saw. Christophe had relationships, but they were often complicated. His dedication to music and his unusual lifestyle made it difficult to maintain closeness. He was married once and had a daughter, but his passion for solitude often stood in the way of family life. He was not a bad father or husband, but he was absent in ways only artists can be. His nights of work and his reclusive nature left those around him feeling shut out. Christophe loved deeply, but he expressed it more in his songs than in everyday gestures. For him, love was poetry, not routine. This made him both fascinating and frustrating to the people who cared for him. In the end, many of his closest relationships were marked by distance, a reflection of how he lived between two worlds, the stage and the shadows. Even though Christophe lived in isolation, he never stopped evolving as an artist. He explored electronic sounds, experimented with synthesizers, and created music ahead of its time. Many critics admired his courage to change, even when it confused fans. He was not chasing popularity, he was chasing truth. Christophe hated being predictable, and he reinvented himself many times throughout his career. His albums in the 1970s and beyond showed a man who refused to be trapped by one era. While others clung to their past hits, Christophe embraced the unknown. This kept him relevant among true music lovers, but it also deepened his image as a mysterious outsider. He was never mainstream, never fully understood, and that was exactly how he wanted it. In his later years, Christophe became even more withdrawn. He performed less frequently, gave fewer interviews, and lived almost completely in the shadows. Fans sometimes worried he had disappeared entirely. When he did appear, people were reminded of his genius and charm. Yet most of his days were spent in private, listening to records, tinkering with new ideas, or simply enjoying the quiet. He once said that isolation wasn't a punishment for him. It was his natural state. While some artists feared fading away, Christophe seemed to accept it gracefully. He valued peace more than attention, and by the end of his life, he had truly built a world only he understood. When Christophe passed away in 2020, France mourned deeply. Tributes poured in from fans, fellow musicians, and admirers who had grown up with his music. Yet even in death, Christophe remained an enigma. His songs were everywhere, but his private life stayed hidden, just as he had wanted. He left behind a legacy not only of music, but also of mystery. Christophe showed the world that fame does not always mean happiness, and that true artistry often comes from solitude. His life reminds us that behind every shining star is a human being, complex, fragile, and searching. Christophe may have lived in isolation, but his music will forever connect him to millions. And perhaps that is the balance he sought all along. Distance in life, but eternal closeness in song.